Hey folks, back again for Game 4 with the Hatebears deck. I did not win the die roll this time, which is fine of course. I'd be actually pretty surprised if I won it 4 times in a row. This time Luxie is on the play. So here we have a pretty unkeepable hand. It's got the turn 1 Sarah Ascendant, which is fine and everything, but it can't cast any of its other spells, and I think I can just do better with another 7, so I decided to ship this one back. Here we have a pretty unexciting hand as well, but it has lands to play its spells, so that's a plus. And then I look at this hand and I realize that there's a Kataki in it, and this guy's a giant commander. He has a pretty large commander as well, and Jaleva, depending on the list, runs lots of artifacts, so I feel like Kataki is going to be pretty impactful on this game. I also have Aura Shards into Atraxa, which is a fine disruptive curve. It's not the fastest draw, for sure, but I decide I'll keep it, and I have faith in my deck that it will deliver the goods when the time is right. So Luxie is on the play here, and he plays a land and reveals a Bayou, and then he taps out, which doesn't make much sense to me. It's just giving away information for no reason. The Jaleva player plays a Mirrodin's Core, which I thought was a really interesting land to put in a Jaleva deck. It's not like this is a bad land or whatever, but it kind of is in his kind of strategy, because you want to cast meaningful spells as early as possible. So Jaleva, normally speaking, doesn't seem like it would be in the business of waiting to cast its spells. So already kind of thinking something's different about this Jaleva over here. I go ahead and play my fetch lands first, because I have Suppression Field in my deck, and that could become an issue later. So he plays another land, Golgari Rot Farm. Everybody's just playing lands and passing. This guy charges up and taps out. So I get my fetch out the way, play Kataki. And I play this here just because I want to curve out, and also it just kind of scares away anybody from trying to do any fast artifact shenanigans. This guy plays something that makes his dinosaurs cheaper and gives dinosaurs haste. I've never seen this card before, but it has amazing art. Like, he's just surrounded by dinosaurs. He clearly really loves dinosaurs. Thought that was pretty cool. And then this guy plays a card that I've never heard of. I've honestly never heard of his commander or this card, but it seems pretty sweet. It's like you sacrifice stuff to gain value, and then you get more value from this guy. Like, this is kind of the kind of decks that I like to play, so I'm excited to see where that goes over there. And then he plays a Darksteel Ingot. I'm already getting value out of the Kataki, so I'm happy about that. Command Tower was not the best draw considering how many lands I have in my deck, but if I really need to, I can Time Twister away these lands and get some gas. And then the big Dino Man plays, you guessed it, a dinosaur. So this makes your creatures, your opponent's control, come into play tapped. I have a feeling it may affect this guy probably the most. Probably doesn't affect him at all. And, well, you know, it's a medium annoying for me. Like, I don't really care about it, but it could become a thing or whatever. Mostly this card's in his deck just because he has to run all the dinosaurs he can because of this guy. And it incidentally is good versus, like, Splinter Twin or Kiki Jiki type shenanigans. So, card's okay, I guess. He attacks Jaleva because he considers her to be the scariest person on the board, and I kind of do too, but with all this stuff that I'm seeing, like, this just does not look like a normal Jaleva list. The basic mountain, particularly, is very strange. Like, you could see, like, a swamp in a Jaleva list, maybe, but Mirrodin's Core, Mountain, and Darksteel Ingot makes me think that this is probably a more budget-friendly Jaleva and not the Storm deck that I'm used to playing against. Most of you who don't know, maybe, this deck usually wants to kill you with Tendrils of Agony or Aetherflux Reservoir, or in some cases Grape Shot, which I don't think Grape Shot's the current meta, but people used to do that. It was a thing. Mind's Desire, Ad Nauseam, Doomsday kind of list. And based on what I'm seeing, I'm thinking that it may not be that. It may just be like a value Jaleva deck, like a control type deck or something. So this guy plays another value engine, so when stuff dies, he gets 1/1 Eldrazi's. So he's kind of setting up the value engine over there. Seems pretty cool. So this guy pays for his Darksteel Ingot, puts a counter on his Mirrodin's Core, and then just taps out completely. Do not do what this guy did. I'm sure many of you know this already, but just don't do this. There are cards like Winter Orb and Static Orb in this format that if you keep tapping out over and over, eventually someone's going to play them, and it's going to wreck your day. So it's a numbers game. It eventually will happen. I get the appeal of wanting to just tap out an F8 and just kind of like watch magic for a second. Like, I understand that. It makes sense to me. I get why people want to do that. But if you do it over and over, eventually something terrible will happen to you. So just don't do this. I'm sure many of you know this already, but I'm sure some of you also do it the way that he's doing. So I'm just going to take a moment to say that. So here I play a land, play Atraxa. I try to shoot the Darksteel Ingot. I know it's not going to work, but I try anyway. I don't attack anybody. I'm not trying to make any enemies. I had the option of proliferating his land. I chose not to. It's likely not going to matter either way, but I could have made a friend if I did that. So Big Dino Man plays a Kadama's Reach, ramping up that mana. Does not attack this turn. So then he plays Anger, which seems pretty good in his deck. The haste is not super relevant versus this guy right now, but he's kind of setting it up. He could like sacrifice Anger, get some 3/2s, and do something pretty sweet. That in conjunction with his commander creates a lot of creatures. It's almost like he has an anti-board wipe tech like laced into his deck. Like you can't really board wipe him because he'll just get value afterwards, which is pretty cool. So he plays a Baleful Strix, which I'm not super worried about. I wasn't really going to attack him aggressively anyway. Based on what I'm seeing here, it seems like he's not the biggest threat. Probably Dino Man is, if the game goes long. But he plays a Jace, and everybody draws a card, which I'm kind of not okay with. I want to keep everyone's resources low, except for mine, of course. And I want to keep all these cards in hand as small as possible and all the stuff in play as small as possible. Eventually, when the game ends, I'd like to be the only person with a board presence. So him letting people draw cards is not really something I want to keep letting happen. Even if it's like a political play and, you know, everybody gets to draw a card, cool, I don't care. I want that stuff gone. So I immediately kill Jace here. And then I tap and untap my lands a bunch of times because I was thinking about different things that I could do with this Imperial Seal and Eladamri's Call. Like, there's a lot of different things I could have done. I could have Imperial Seal for something to play it next turn. I could have Eladamri's Call for a creature and played it now. But I ultimately decided it was best to either pass with leaving up Miko Koro or Gavany Township. And since I have Eladamri's Call, it's likely that I'll want to cast it, and I won't be able to activate Gavany Township then. So I decided to play Miko Koro to give myself the option of letting everyone draw a card if I want them to around this guy's instep or whatever. So I just pass with mana up. Don't proliferate anything again. Got a great blocker here. And this guy plays a giant dinosaur that makes his other dinosaurs bigger. Pretty cool card. And then he plays his commander. So his value engine is like fully intact over here. He's doing some pretty sweet stuff. And then he attacks into Clouds over here with the 2/2 into his 5/5. Now, if he was attacking me, I probably would have just taken it because it's obvious this guy wants this in his graveyard. And I would have just made him sacrifice it or do something else. But he chooses to block. If I was him, I probably would have just taken the 2. 2 damage is likely not to matter, but the haste might matter in the future. So he gets a couple of things. He ramps him up a little bit. He pays for his ingot, pays for his Strix. Definitely happy about that. And then he plays a bomb. He plays Gilded Drake. Now, I'm looking at the board here, and it's obvious that the singularly most powerful threat is Atraxa, so he's likely going to take it. And I don't really care about Atraxa. Like, I don't need Atraxa to win in my deck. And I don't really proliferate anything except for Azrael. So he's just here for a good blocker. That's really it. But either way, I don't want him to steal it with the Gilded Drake. So I Eladamri's Call for a Hushwing Gryff. Now, I talked in the deck tech about some non-bows. This is definitely an example of one of those. Hushwing Gryff and Aura Shards is not a combo. These cards are not friends, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes. So I play Hushwing Gryff. He plays Croesus Charm. He destroys my creature before the Gilded Drake enters the battlefield, and sure enough, he ends up taking my Atraxa anyway. So here I'm looking at the situation. I realize that I'm behind on board quite a bit, especially after that last play. And with this Imperial Seal, normally I would want to just go for Notion Thief, Time Twister, but if I do that, then all these people are going to smash me, and I'll be dead in a short amount of time. So I decide that I'm going to Imperial Seal for Cyclonic Rift. And that way I can Cyclonic Rift on the next turn at his instep, and then I can Time Twister all of this stuff away and kind of reset the board. So I pass with Gavany and Miko Koro open. This guy plays another Cultivate. Plays this dinosaur that allows you to return dinosaurs and it adds mana to your pool. Or he's not a dinosaur, he's just friends with them. But... And yet another dinosaur. A Raptor hatchling. Only cost him 1 mana, pretty good. Gives him haste, and then doesn't attack with anything. This guy casts a Worldly Tutor to get Titania, which I thought was pretty strange because he doesn't have any lands in his graveyard. And if he doesn't have a fetch land in his hand, then chances are he's not going to get very much value off of this Titania. So he plays Titania and then plays a non-fetch land, which I thought was just, really confusing and surprising to me. Like, there had to be a better card to search for other than Titania in this position in his deck. If not, then I'm just incredibly surprised. Like, I get that. I mean, it's a fine card. I love Titania. Titania is awesome. But in this situation, with what he had in hand and what his board looks like, it just doesn't make very much sense for me for him to play Titania here. But then he chooses to attack me, and I have Gavany Township up. I probably should have either just taken it or blocked with the Gilded Drake or something like that, but I ended up Gavany Townshipping so that I can block favorably against this guy. Maybe he just didn't see it or something. But the reason why this is a mistake and I shouldn't do this is because I should have left Miko Koro open so that if this guy plays Jaleva, which he hasn't yet, but if he chooses to play Jaleva after I just tutored, then he's going to steal my Cyclonic Rift. So I don't want that to happen. And I probably should have just taken the damage, which in the long run would have not been as relevant as what's about to happen. So he pays for his artifacts, he strip mines my Gavany Township, doesn't attack, and plays Jaleva. And Jaleva snipes a bunch of stuff. Snipes my Cyclonic Rift, gets this thing from this guy, which seems like it'd be pretty sweet in my deck because of its interaction with Elish Norn. We have a Blasphemous Act and a Wrath of God. And over here we have Arcane Denial, which probably sucks in that situation, and this thing, which is probably not going to be very relevant either. But the main thing is he took my Cyclonic Rift, so I have to figure out a new game plan here to try to figure out something to do in response to all of this stuff. So I pick up Selfless Spirit. I decide to let each player draw a card. I play Selfless Spirit with the plan, first of all, I shoot the Baleful Strix, and now if he wraths the board with Jaleva, using one of these spells, then I can sacrifice my Selfless Spirit to give my two little dorky guys protection. Indestructible, rather. This guy plays his giant commander, and then he just alphas. He all out swings at Jaleva. I guess he knows that a board wipe is coming, and maybe he just fears Jaleva the most. But he blocks this guy with Atraxa. Yeah, he just really wants to get as much damage in on the Jaleva as he can before everything gets reset. If I know anything about the dinosaur deck, is it probably can't withstand very many board wipes, so that's probably why he's doing that. So this guy plays a card, sweet card that I've never heard of before. It says when a creature comes into play, it shoots something. So that's pretty sweet. In his deck, with what he's doing, it seems pretty good. It's a shared effect. Everybody gets the effect, but it seems like it's better in his deck than it is in anyone else's deck. So I can see why he runs it. He thinks about sacking stuff with this thing, and then decides not to, I think. Or is he? What is he doing over there? Alright. He ends up just attacking with Titania at me. And I realized that, Kataki has done a little bit, but it's not done as much as I wanted it to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of Kataki. I realize I can sacrifice Selfless Spirit and save it. But just trading a 3-2 for a 5-3 seems like a fine trade, especially whenever the board potentially is about to be getting wiped. So I decide I'll just trade here. So he gets some value. He gives that guy, by shooting his little guy, a 3-3. And then he shoots my Selfless Spirit, so then which sucks, and I sacrifice it to protect my Gilded Drake. That I don't want to have. This guy plays a Soul Ring, now the Kataki's gone. Now the Kataki is finally gone. Attacks with Jaleva, and sure enough, casts Wrath. So he sacrifices this guy to get a dinosaur back, to get this guy back. So then this guy has some responses. I think it would have been just best for him to let his board get Wrath. He gets a bunch of 3-1s and Scion tokens. And he could use that with Pandemonium to still have a board presence and shoot things, shoot people, I guess. But he decides to sack here, which doesn't make sense to me, because I think in the long run he's going to end up getting less creatures than if he just let this resolve. So he does this, gets another creature, he starts shooting stuff, and then this guy realizes what's happening, decides to use his Thrashing Brontodon to shoot the Pandemonium to prevent any further shenanigans from happening while all these triggers are on the stack. So no more shooting stuff for now. So Wrath resolves, everything dies, this guy has a 3-1, and we're basically at parity. Which is good for me, that's how I like it, especially considering my hand. My plan next turn is to go Notion Thief, Time Twister. So if something doesn't change, that's exactly what I'm going to do. This guy plays something super scary, a Nicol Bolas. Jaleva busting out the big guns. And I don't want that to stay around. That's pretty bad for me. But my play is pretty forced. He shoots the Aura Shards, assuming that I'm going to play a creature and blow up his Soul Ring. But I'm like very happy that he blew up the Aura Shards. Like if he could see my hand and he had complete information, he would have certainly sniped a land in this situation and just prevented me from making my next play, which is pretty brutal. So I play Notion Thief, and I play a Time Twister, and I draw 28 cards. No one conceded this time. So I discard a bunch of stuff. Again, I try to keep only the cards that I think are going to help me win the game. And these are the cards that win the game. I got an Elish Norn, I got a Living Plane, Selfless Spirit for a little bit of protection, Vindicate, and Swords to protect against some of the shenanigans that may occur over the next couple of turns. The only mistake I made here, I think, was keeping Windfall. I don't need to cast Windfall because my hand's amazing, and I don't need to cast Windfall because of their hands. So I probably should have just not kept Windfall and maybe kept Vampiric Tutor or even something like Abrupt Decay just to have some more interaction. Or Eidolon of Rhetoric, which they're only drawing one card per turn, so Eidolon of Rhetoric is not the best. But Sisay, there's a couple of things that would have been better probably than Windfall. And we'll see why as the game transpires. So Big Dino Man casts this giant thing that it has double strike and gives your other creatures double strike, which is a pretty powerful threat once it gets going. This guy plays his commander because that's about all he can do. And he attacks me with this thing, and I mean it makes sense for him to be attacking me, but I was very, very happy about this. Maybe he didn't think very much about the implications about what exactly was going on here, but if I could have chose for him to attack me, I definitely would have, and I'll explain why. Like I said, normally you don't want to be attacked by creatures, but one of the only ways that I can lose this game is if this guy gains control of my Notion Thief and he top decks a wheel, which basically puts me in the same position that I just put everyone else in, which is no cards in hand and no board presence. So I take this opportunity to trade off my Notion Thief. Its job is done. It has done everything that I wanted to do and more, so I'm fine just getting rid of it here and eliminating that as a possibility. So then we got a giant Jaleva here, 6 mana this time. Hits me for a bunch of stuff, for a whopping 3 spells, 3 different creature tutors. Gets this guy for some stuff that's likely not going to matter, and doesn't get anything from over here, and he gets a counter spell, which again cannot be very good with Jaleva. He blows up my land because he's been after me the whole time, obviously, and now it makes more sense than anything for him to be after me. Like, they should all be ganging up on me based on what I just did to them. It just makes sense. So I'm not, like, upset about that play at all. So I Vindicate Nicol Bolas because I can't have that continuing. He was about to ultimate, and he was definitely 100% going to target me with this ultimate. So I decided to kill that. Then with my leftover mana, I play Selfless Spirit. I play Mother of Runes, and I play Gaia's Cradle. This is like kind of like a false threat. Like, I don't really care about either of these things. Like, they will help if they stay in play, but I don't really care about these. Like, if these die, then it's no big deal. It's just fuel for the Cradle. And I wanted to play the Cradle on the same turn that I'm doing all of this stuff, but I can't because it will be summoning sick if I play it on the same turn that I play Living Plane. So I have to play it a turn before and just hope that no one strips mines me. But however, if I do get to untap, then I will be able to do Living Plane into Elish Norn with the mana from the Gaia's Cradle. So I decided to do this. Big Dino Man plays Vandal Blast, overloaded to kill this Soul Ring. I don't know if that was like a play of frustration or like chance. There's a chance that he just couldn't. He didn't know if he could see everything. You see how like Jaleva's cards cover up my cards. You can't even see. There's a creature back here. I think you can't even see it because of all this stuff in the way. So maybe he was just like making sure there weren't artifacts hidden somewhere, and he wanted to blow up all of them. But it's just going after this Soul Ring. So that's gone. He attacks. He should be attacking me. Let's make sure. No, he actually attacks Jaleva again with the double striking guy. He certainly should be going after me at this point. Like, however pissed he was about Jaleva for board wiping, I just nuked everyone's hands. And, like, it just makes sense. Maybe I only have 4 cards left. He doesn't see me as that much of a threat, and my board presence isn't that scary. But he definitely should have been attacking me. So Jaleva attacks. The dinosaur guy. And he casts Eladamri's Call from my deck, getting Consecrated Sphinx, which is pretty good now that Notion Thief is gone. If he wants to get back in this game, he needs something like that. So here on my upkeep, let's see. Here, I wanted very badly to just swords the Consecrated Sphinx before I drew. That way he doesn't get an additional 2 cards. But I realized after looking at my mana that I need to top deck a land in order to go Living Plane into Elish Norn and cast swords. So I didn't want to take that gamble, and I'd rather take the gamble of him just not drawing anything good on these 2 cards and me assembling my combo. So I ended up not swordsing the Consecrated Sphinx, even though I wanted to. And sure enough, I did not draw a land. So here, the plan is simple. Play Living Plane, play Elish Norn. Now, when this Elish Norn hits the stack, I have never seen 2 players concede as quickly as these guys did. I'm talking like the second that Elish Norn went on the stack, these 2 players conceded. As soon as it happened. Never seen someone snap concede that fast in my whole life. This guy hung around until his next turn just to realize how hopelessly screwed he was under this board state and how oppressive it is. Like, he was going to be dead in a few turns, and honestly, they all were going to be dead in a few turns. So he concedes 2. He packs it in. So that's game 4.